call to order the August 21st, 2023 City of East Bethel Economic Development Authority agenda. Our first little business is to adopt the agenda. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? No? We'll take a vote to adopt. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we have an agenda. Next, we'll approve the July 17th, 2023 EDA minutes.
I'll move for approval as submitted.
Second.
Have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor of the minutes say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, we'll move on to our next agenda item, BR&E program update discussion.
Thank you, Tom. City staff met with East Bethel Chamber of Commerce at their May 11th, 2023 meeting and updated the chamber on the EDA's initiative to revisit the current business retention and expansion program and requested their participation going forward with the update. Staff has had 2 follow-up meetings with the chamber along with email communications to determine their interest in partnering in the update. The chamber's involvement is critical to moving forward with this program. There will be a representative from the chamber and business community in attendance tonight, and that's Mr. Paul Johnson. Thank you for coming, Paul. The summary of the discussion we had from our last meeting was to acknowledge and the need for the fact that we are a different city now than at the time of the original BRE. And initially, where do we start and what is our goal? The EDA recommends that we continue the discussion of the need and the approach for the business retention and expansion update with the Chamber of Commerce members to poll their level of interest and participation in the update. And again, we have Mr. Paul Johnson with Aggressive Hydraulics tonight. And Paul, if you would like to come to the podium and express what your feelings are and give us your input on this business retention and expansion program, we would certainly welcome that.
Do I need to sign in?
No, you're good.
Okay. Paul Johnson with Aggressive Hydraulics. Yes, and I'm playing catch up here a little bit. I thought I was going to have some more people here from the Chamber of Commerce, but I did participate in as a volunteer with previous BR&E. Jack, that was in 2016?
2016, correct.
Yeah, so it was 7 years ago. As a resident and a business owner within the community, I really liked the process of what we did in 2016, where we had teams. It was two volunteers and the all businesses within the city were on a list, and we divvied them out on a even Steven basis where everybody had the same number of people, and it was a questionnaire. We explained to the respective businesses that we were interviewing. We set up appointments, and then we explained why we were there on a relatively canned fashion, certainly introduced ourselves and what have you, and went through the same questions. Everybody had the same questions, and there were categories and so on, and then all that information was tallied when the interviews were complete. Some businesses just did not want to participate, but I don't recall what percentage of the business community accepted the invitation for an interview and meeting us. But nonetheless, the process was quite uninvasive. Some business owners they were a little riled up about a couple issues, but by and large, they appreciated the openness and honesty and really sincerely wanting to hear what kind of feedback they had, and that information was tallied and categorized, and it was an opportunity to see where the where there was correlation and agreement among the people within the community who own businesses. So I think a follow-up to that would be welcomed. I think it would be prudent to revisit the questions that we had before and maybe have respective follow-up that's more personalized with those respective businesses that had some issues. But quite a different city. I've read the minutes and where we were 7 years ago. A lot of things have transpired, but yeah, that's my familiarity with it. You know, we were doing a number of things with the BR&E on coming up with a slogan, something to put on the water tower, beyond just the city of East Bethel. And last time I checked, it just says City of East Bethel, so that's okay. I don't know. I'm kind of down to earth, and I don't know that we need a slogan to do anything, but just certainly fostering good conduit of information within the business community. I would tell you also that my personal opinion, and I've spoken with some of you about this, and I think I think it would be advantageous for this initiative to break down some communication misinformation or paradigms on the role that businesses have within the community. And maybe with some metrics that show actually what are the impacts of businesses that move into the city in terms of their contribution to our tax revenue. I've had numerous conversations with people over the years, and every once in a while there's a dialogue that is in the context, and the perception is that if we have a new business, now I'm not talking about what kind of business it is, but there's a perception on the part of some of our residents, our taxpayers, and that businesses that come into the city, they're being largely subsidized. They're not covering their burden on city services and so on. And I'm an engineer by trade, and I make decisions based on facts, and you try to take the facts and then draw conclusions accordingly, and track record, batting average is a lot better when you have facts. And I think that I would tell you, for the most part, people within the community are very appreciative of the contributions that businesses have within the community, donating and hiring, and they recognize that there is a fair amount of tax revenue. Even, you know, the topic of the city sewer and water, they're not aware that there's SAC and WAC, sewer access and water access charges, that can be pretty sizable for a business like our size, and we get it. We would have to pay that if we were in Blaine or if we were in East Bethel. Jack, when we were working on coming here, we said we need to be competitive within other municipalities, and the due diligence that we did, it was. We weren't looking for subsidies. So some of that information, I think, could be beneficial. Just if somebody chooses to look at the metrics and so on, if we're able to arrive at some that are tangible, and I don't think we need a deep dive, but I think it would be favorable within our community here if there were a higher level of knowledge on some of the cause and effect on what businesses have. And of course, there's a lot of different kind of businesses. There's one person working out of their house, and then there's retail, there's manufacturing, there's all kinds of different businesses. But I've always been a proponent of that businesses and residents can coexist, and it can be a win-win, and certainly, yeah, not everyone's gonna agree on everything all the time, but certainly dispelling misinformation and ensuring that we have proper facts available to those who choose to review that. So something to consider there. So that was something that we didn't do in 2016, and it was really kind of a, let's ensure we work on keeping the businesses we have here. Let's bridge the gap between businesses who have a paradigm or maybe a rightful grievance that the city is not business friendly. Let's just lay our cards on the table, see where we're at, see what we can do to coexist, and move forward as constructively as possible. And certainly we know that there's a pretty big bill hanging out there with our city sewer and water project. And when we moved here, we wanted to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And you know, last year we expanded. And we paid some more sack and wax, so we're trying to do our part. That's what I have. I'm more than happy to contact the president of the chamber, Brad, and ask him to help get more of a consensus and share with this commission what they're willing to do to help in the BR&E endeavor.
Paul, from your perspective, if this is the route if we're going to do this update, do you have any recommendations over what we did last time, or does this one need to be somewhat of a more scaled down approach, because we do have some data that's probably relevant that we don't need to go out and get again? There's some we probably need to update. But is there anything that you see different that needs to be done that could communicate better the desire to help businesses? You know, it's been shown that it's a lot easier and cheaper to retain a job than it is to attract a job. And I think that's one of our focuses with this on both counts. But I think the major focus on this going forward is to focus on our existing businesses. So, you know, we're looking for input too on how we go about what strategy we're going to use. If we're going to use the same model, or if we need to modify it any.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I say it just about daily. You know, we attribute our successes that we've had at our business through two things. One, retention of employees, and secondly, retention of customers. If you have a revolving door with employees, it's difficult to hang on to customers. Yeah, it's definitely a lot more prudent to retain employees, and it's less costly, and it's yeah, it goes hand in hand. And that can be said certainly for the city's perspective on businesses. It's more prudent to work with businesses we have. One of the things that, you know, we spend our business a fair amount on sales and marketing. Our best tool is word of mouth. The marketing that we do really creates dialogue where people start talking about it and information. But you know, intuitively, it would seem that business is also word of mouth. You know, you might want to consider East Bethel if you're going to relocate, and if it's a good fit, you know, take a look at it. And I've certainly done it. And so, but to answer your question also, what would we do different? I think a scaled down version of what was done before. I mentioned earlier that, you know, there was what's our slogan? What's going to be our differentiation? What is different about East Bethel than other communities. And there's been an awful lot of dialogue about that this year at the different commissions, at the council meetings. And people love the rural feel of the community. But we do have a sewer and water district, and within reason, it'd be nice to plug away and bring businesses in that I've heard lots of things about grocery stores and more restaurants and those kind of things. That will come. But it all starts with helping do what we can as a community to create a welcoming and a level of appreciation for the businesses that we do have, because they are contributors. So I like what we did with the interviews. I think scaling that down, we had gone through every business, anyone who has a PUD, or a special use permit and that sort of thing. I don't know that we need to do that.
Yeah.
We could send out a survey and ask who wants to be part of it. There's some different things we could do there, but certainly scaling it down, I don't know that we need the 30-some people to do it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I was thinking maybe initially looking at this in terms of scaling it down is we kind of separate the businesses into different categories and select some target businesses to do. Also put the word out that if anybody's not selected wants to participate in this, we'd be glad to come visit them, do it that way, and probably break it down into two segments: the businesses that have actual physical locations, and then those that have the IUPs, the home-based businesses, because it's kind of two separate things with both of those entities. And I don't know if you think this would be a sensible way to approach it, but it's one thing that I've thought about.
Well, I like that approach. I can tell you that I and Brad and our team spent more time trying to coordinate a meeting time and playing telephone tag and what have you, and answering questions on the phone. We spent more time doing that than we did the actual interviews themselves.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Were you part of that, Brian?
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay.
Can I butt in with something?
Absolutely.
Just for your feedback. One of the things that I felt was real advantageous, and my partner was a former EDA member that's an insurance man, so I won't throw his name out there. Everyone knows who I'm talking about. I'm a construction professional, superintendent, owned a construction company at one time. I felt that having someone who was in the straight service industry, to me, that's the insurance business, is a straight service industry. And yes, construction can be a service business. You do provide a service, but you put bricks and mortar up in the air and build things. I think it's a good idea to have, if you can, have your teams be diverse kind of in their background, because like we went into a structural steel manufacturer that we have here in town, and Dan doesn't know anything about structural steel. Well, I do. So it kind of helped to be able to do that. And the other thing was that we tended to concentrate our interviews on a certain type of business because of that, that we had a diverse background.
I think that's good input. Having two peas in a pod where you have the same background would not be as beneficial as having more diversity in that team and being able to, because it's about communication, and Brad and I took turns asking questions, and then the other one was writing the answers, taking notes. But I think that's great input, Brian.
And one other thing that I'd like to see is a follow-up to this initial update is an annual continuation of it, where you do selected few each year and not just complete the survey, do the interviews, try to work on the problems, but then we don't address it until 7 years later. Do you see this as being a benefit if it's done on a continual basis?
I think that's a great idea also. Maintaining something is more efficient than dusting it off
Yeah.
and starting all over again. We're trying to resurrect something and remember what we were doing. And again, the community, business community, a lot of people know one another and there's a buzz and that sort of thing. So maintaining more of a continuation, as you mentioned, more of a surveillance kind of thing where you randomly check off the boxes, then you start all over again, is a nice way to maintain communication on a regular basis within that business community.
And again, I think, you know, this is a critical thing that's done with the city and the chamber. I think businesses would rather be interviewed by other business owners than with city staff or council members. I think the chamber's role in this is critical and just essential to making it succeed.
Yeah, that was definitely a dynamic. If somebody had a grievance, they were comfortable. If you want honest feedback, they have to be comfortable. And of course, we were getting to know one another before we dove into the questions. And most of the businesses that we visited, we asked if they had a moment to give us a tour. And every business did show us around and let us know about their business, which everybody likes talking about their, you know, what they do for a living and what have you. So, yeah, I definitely think that that buffer between staff and elected officials gives the people that are participating the comfort to be more honest. If we can't get open and honest feedback, then it's the information's compromised. So,
I have a question for you. Do you think, can you think of any new issues that have transpired in the last 6 years that we could add to the study, things that we can inquire about at different businesses? Anything new that they might be coming across that they wouldn't have came across 6 years ago?
yeah, the one thing that seems to be conversation is our traffic patterns. You know, 6-7 years ago, we didn't have the roundabouts or the J-hooks. Is that the right term?
That's close enough.
I think we know what I'm talking about. But there's lots of dialogue and conjecture about that, and in some of the new business opportunities, things that are going on the east side of the highway. There's concern with traffic patterns and the impact on that. So that's the one thing that comes to mind for me. But I think certainly issues that people will have will come out, and that's one of the nice things about it. And also I would tell you that our posture was we didn't get into talking about the issues as much as just recording what their thoughts were, and we weren't there to advocate an issue. Just ask the questions and listen, and write information down. So I think we'll find out if we do this, what issues they have.
Yeah, I think I like the old questions, and I could see that some of them have never still been resolved. But I know there has to be some new issues with technology and all this other stuff that's occurred in the last 6-7 years.
Yeah, broadband. We've come a long ways with that and what's going on there. So that was an issue
Yeah.
that was brought up 7 years ago. So,
Thank you.
yeah, great questions, thank you. Anybody else? I'm sorry, I'm not more prepared.
No,
No, I think you're by surprise.
This is exactly what we wanted to hear.
Okay,
And it's great input, and I'm just hoping we can get a level of participation from the chamber that'll let us go forward with this. I think it's our goal, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, the EDA. We think this is very important because we recognize the importance of business to our community, and recognize that it has to be here in order to make us be able to grow the way we want to grow.
do you have any feedback on my point on the metrics that would maybe help illustrate cause and effect with the business, within the business community and their contribution to?
We don't have anything specifically like that, but that wouldn't be anything that'd be difficult to develop. I mean, we've got numbers, it's a matter of just assembling the data and showing what the impacts are, you know, just in terms of taxes, employment, you know, what one job does, what the multiplier effects of all this thing,
Right.
and how it ripples back to the community.
Yeah, awful lot of opinions, but some of those, just a few metrics may
Yeah.
be very advantageous in our, within the business community, and what is it, you know, in a new house within the community versus a business,
Yeah.
and I don't know what those numbers are.
Well, and you know, and one of the things I think we can come up with maybe a presentation to give to the breakfast meeting of the chamber in October. That would be a good goal, just to roll that out. And, you know, I think a lot of people would be surprised, even business owners, what their impact is
Yeah.
locally.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, well, I will work with the chamber. Certainly, the chamber's role is to be accessible to businesses, and it's an opportunity for them to, for the chamber to promote their existence, but not that that's how the check-in would be led, but it's an opportunity to facilitate that as well. So I will work on that.
Well, Paul, we certainly appreciate you coming here tonight. Your input's been very valuable, and what I think, at least, I hope our goal is to have something ready to roll out to the meeting with the full chamber in October, and we can make a determination from there on which way we can go with this.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Yeah. I think one of the important statistics we could try to come up with is various businesses' economic output, you know, how much they're providing, how much they provide to the city and fund, you know, and their revenues,
Yeah.
and how that correlates.
Yeah, you know, and really there's several ways. They pay taxes, they pay wages. Wages are spent in the city.
Right.
Sometimes those dollars may turn over depending on what there is here, maybe anywhere from 2 to 6 times, which is huge in the local economy. And then too, you know, what they do to the other businesses too, the housing market and things like that. Some of them we may not have the information to go too much in depth with those, but we can provide a pretty good overview.
Yeah.
Good discussion. Anything else? Jack, do you need anything else from us on this?
No, not unless, you know, and the only thing is, and I think we're still kind of flesh it out, but I think going forward, maybe depending on what participation rate we get, maybe scaling this down somewhat to make it more manageable and doing it on target industries, but still letting people know that are out there, if they don't get selected, then they have the option. All you gotta do is call and we can set up something and
Right.
do that interview so we can get their input, because
Multiple modalities.
yeah,
for getting
and
this
the other
done.
thing is Paul mentioned, one of them is equally important as getting the information, is just getting the communications out with the businesses to let them know that they are extremely important and we want them here in the community and we want to see them prosper.
Mhm. Very good. Thank you. We'll move on to the next agenda item, Viking Meadows revised concept plan.
The city has received a revised concept plan for the redevelopment of Viking Meadows Golf Course. The original concept plan was presented to the Planning Commission at their June 27, 2023 meeting, and City Council on July 24, 2023. That project presented a planned unit development of 350 homes and was discussed at the July 17, 2023 EDA meeting. As a result of comments received from City Council, Parks Commission, Planning Commission, and the EDA, Capstone has presented a revised concept plan, which was exhibited in Attachment 2 in your packet. This plan, to address comments from the city, has incorporated the following changes. They will follow the zoning designations that currently overlay the site and remove their initial request that the project be considered as a planned unit development. They've reduced the proposed number of single-family units from 350 to 252. They've increased the dedicated park acreage from 1 acre to 8 acres and the use of park dedication fees of $378,000 for use in developing the 1 acre nature play park. And they have eliminated the inclusion of the 30-acre parcel that's outside the municipal utility service area boundary as part of the plan. So they made some pretty significant changes. This was their original concept plan on top here, which included, this is the whole golf course, but 30 acres of this was outside the municipal service area. So they have eliminated that, which solves an issue with traffic concerns on 189th and the issue of changing the comp plan to allow water and sewer service here. So their new concept plan includes this boundary here. So this portion down here has been eliminated. So within the yellow and orange areas, this is where they plan to do their home construction. This phase right here is in the mixed use zone, and they plan to build, or they propose to build, 211 homes in this area. And this area right here is zoned R1 and 41 homes in this area. When you take all that out and you put all the open space in there, the yellow and orange areas would be developed as housing. The green areas would be open space, which would be parkland, wetlands, ponds, marshes. So a significant area of this site would be undeveloped and in open space. This is what they propose for their extra park stuff. They're going to double the size of this park and also dedicate this parcel over here for parkland. This would be more of a space where there's a trail through it, maybe a gazebo, some benches, but it'd just be more, not an active place, but just a place to be maintained and be a nice area to walk through. And there would also be a connection here that would tie into the Elevage Trail, so eventually you could walk from here to Quick Trip or eventually maybe down to Briarwood or Ham Lake when all that connection's done. The big issue hanging out here is the traffic study. They met with the highway department 3 or 4 weeks ago. The highway department has given them some comments that they're looking at, most of which involve what the designs are going to have to be for these 2 intersections at Viking Boulevard. There has been a meeting with Doug Osborne, who owns this property south of Capstone, and to make sure that this proposed street extension coming right here will align with the street that he has planned for this 20 acres, which used to be part of the old par 3 course for Viking Meadows. And it would eventually tie back in here to Sand Hill Parkway. So Doug and Capstone are in agreement as to where these 2 things would line up. So this would give a additional outlet to the south when this property here is developed. So they've made quite a few changes. So I'm just doing this as an update from the EDA to see if they have any comments. They're gonna submit this to the planning commission tomorrow night. The planning commission will give them some type of a formal comment, and then it can go to city council, and then from there, we'll see where this project's gonna go. So, does anybody have any questions on that?
I do, because I'm not familiar with lot sizes and stuff. They're 50-foot lots, so how many 50-foot lots fit on an acre? 10?
A 50-foot lot would probably be, you'd have, there's 208 feet, about 208 feet in an acre. So depending, you'd probably get 6 of those lots on an acre, by the time you had the roads in.
So they're proposing about a quarter acre for a home?
Yeah, those would be about a quarter acre. The 211 would, the 41 would be at a little higher density. I think those are on 80-foot lots.
Acres, 44,000 square feet.
Yeah, 43,560.
Yep.
The classic single-family homes in R1, the 30 acres that's out of the Musa area.
That's correct. That's zoned R1.
Yep. That's gonna be on-site individual sewage systems?
No, that's water and city water. All this would be city water and sewer.
It is,
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
I missed that, I guess.
Yeah. So the thing that would be absent from their original proposal would be, I don't know if anybody can see it here, but it's this 30 acres here is gonna be taken out of it. I think they've informed the golf course that if they go through with the purchase agreement, that will be left off the purchase.
Okay, that
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
that was the part, okay, so I hadn't missed it.
No,
That was the portion,
that's correct. That's zoned rural residential now.
okay.
They're not gonna change
Yeah.
the zone. Do we know if the new water tower would hold this plus the other project?
More than enough.
Okay,
The water tower is, especially in the wintertime, is hardly ever full. It'll hold, I think, 480,000 gallons, and we're operating at about 10% capacity on that now, so.
so this plus the other development going on?
Oh, yeah,
still would use the
there's plenty of capacity in the existing utility system to serve the build-out of this whole area, which would be the golf course, elevage, whatever Mr. Osborne wants to do in the future, and then the infilling of some other lots. So the capacity is not an issue.
Do we know if that parcel, this may not be that relative to us, but it seems like it, that parcel on 181st that's being cleared into Ham Lake just south of our city, do we know if that's being developed?
What we've been told, it's going to be farmed and used for a Christmas tree farm, so.
Interesting.
Now, at some point, it will be developed, but it's not gonna be anytime in the
Doesn't
near
look like
future.
it now, okay. It just, they cleared it almost like
yeah.
they're planning to develop it, but I didn't see anything
Yeah.
in the works, so yeah, interesting.
Jack, is the fiscal impact also updated in the packet from the revised from the former one as well?
The fiscal, let me check this and see. I'm pretty sure that it is. Yes, that's updated.
Okay,
The original estimate was on I believe,
the last pack.
SAC charges, SAC and WAC charges, like about 1.9 million. And the estimated property taxes generated at build-out was about $390,000, so that's
what I
updated.
thought, yeah. So looking at that difference, is that for the loss potential, hypothetical loss to the city of that, what would we gain other than the loss of that thing? I still see that there's a traffic study that is not complete, which was a big question mark in our last discussion, and it's still largely left unsaid. So I don't see much improvement in the plan other than the reduced density.
Well, there's the reduced density, that's still a huge fiscal impact from our part.
Yeah,
And again, they want to make sure that there's buy-in with this concept before they do the traffic study. There's nothing, it's a formal approval of this. It's just a formal recommendation from the planning commission to give them assurance that in order to do the traffic study, they're gonna have to spend quite a bit of money, and they can start going ahead with the preliminary plat. But they know if they can meet some of these requirements and everybody's on board with it, then they have a better chance of getting it approved than if they just go ahead without this. So the big thing is there's a reduction in density of about, 30%. And there's a little bit, not more open space, but the reduction of density, I think, translates into some bigger lot sizes over what they'd originally proposed. And it still keeps this where it's all single-family homes, and nobody's coming in and saying, well, in order to make up for the loss of that 30 acres, I've got to increase the density. Well, they decreased the density. Now, I'm sure that the home prices will go up. I mean, their dollars have to match out some way. But I thought it was a pretty good option, and we had a meeting with them, and I think they were very receptive to the comments that they received from City Council, Planning Commission, Parks, and the EDA in making these proposed changes.
Okay.
So my other question is the extension of the SAC and WAC. How is that financed? Is that financed through taxpayers? Is the developer paying for that, or who's paying for all
The
that?
developer puts all the water and sewer in. We don't pay for anything. And then they pay the sewer access and the water access charge. The city portion is $5,600. The Met Council portion is $3,185 per each house.
Right.
So we don't, they build the system, they build it to our specifications and standards. We inspect it. If it meets our specs, we accept it, becomes ours, but we don't pay anything for it.
So they pay us and Met Council.
And then they pay the connection charges in addition to installing the system and turning it over to us for operation and maintenance.
Okay. Nothing else here.
Do you know if they plan to have some sort, I forget what it's called, but you know, where they charge them a fee, I forget what it's called.
HOA?
Yeah, like an HOA. Do you know if they would plan to have an HOA to cover the sewer and water?
They do have an HOA, but it's not necessarily to cover the sewer and water. It's more to cover just some basic maintenance of the green space in here, you know, to keep things mowed. But other than that, that's all they have.
The 30-acre parcel, do we know if that's part of, that's not gonna be landlocked, I take it?
No, actually, you could access it through 189th and come back this way to get into it. There is no access off of Greenbrook, though, to get in there. It can be accessed by emergency vehicles, but there would be nothing, no roads or anything built into it.
Is
And it
that,
could be accessed too by extension. The road, their street will stop here, so it could be accessed from this point right here.
so that's all part of the sale, it's just not gonna be developed at this point?
No, they're not even gonna buy it.
They're not buying it.
They've told the golf course, if this goes through, they're not purchasing that. So the golf course would still own that parcel.
Can we scroll down to the updated photo, please?
Which one?
That's the old draft, isn't it?
Yeah.
So where are they, so they're planning on just terminating the road there, and then they're not planning on meeting it up with 189th, correct?
That's correct. Well, it'll meet up with 189th in this corner, but that's still in that service area. But what we recommended and proposed that they do is just use 189th as emergency service vehicle access only. No through traffic would be allowed there.
So not even a paved road then?
No, not even paved road. And there would be a special type gate here that would allow these vehicles to enter it, so there wouldn't be any people taking shortcuts through here.
So the fire department will just have a key to the gate.
Yeah, they have,
That's the gate, whatever they gotta do.
yeah, they would have a key to the gate, and they make some of these gates, they're called breakaway gates, and it'd be a gate like that. It would restrict through traffic, but it would be accessible to the fire department, ambulance services, and things of that nature if they need to get in this way quicker. And from the fire department standpoint, depending on where it is, of course, it's gonna be about the same time or distance because they're just right up the road on Viking Boulevard. But the problem with taking any traffic out on 189th is actually the intersection there with Greenbrook. It's a very blind curve, and in order probably to meet the county requirements, 189th would probably have to be relocated and moved south at least 300 feet, so there'd have to be a home bought. It'd be a very expensive proposition to do that.
So was that probably part of their motivation with taking out that rural residential area?
I think the biggest part of it is the fact that it would be very difficult to get it approved for a change in the comp plan and have it rezoned. So I think they saw that that was gonna be, an issue they didn't wanna tackle, and they've done this, the density changes and probably a little bit higher priced house to compensate for that.
So what are Viking Meadows' options to do with that plot of land?
Well, you know, they could sell it off to another developer who could come in there and do the 1 in 10 stuff on it if they wanted to.
Maybe they could sell it to the homeowners.
Yeah, I mean, that's another option too.
You know what I mean?
That's another option too.
Right.
So, but anyway, that would resolve that issue too of the impact, a lot of the impact on the 189th Avenue neighborhood.
Very good. Thank you for that information, Jack. Any other questions or discussion on that? Okay, let's move on to item 6.0, proposed utility extension.
The owner of a 9+ acre parcel at the intersection of Highway 65 and 181st Avenue is interested in developing this property as a commercial site. The site is not served by water and sewer. The city services terminate approximately 1,400 feet north of the site. Let me pull this up so you can look at it. So this is where the East Bethel city sign is, where you can see the cursor down here when you come into East Bethel from Ham Lake, traveling north on Highway 65. The property that they're interested in marking is this 8 to 9 acres here that lies between 65 and Sand Hill Parkway. This is 65 Pub and Grub here, and this is Snap Fitness to give you a reference point. This is 181st Avenue. Extension of utilities to serve this area are part of the facilities plan that's incorporated in the comp plan and is inside the Metropolitan Utility Service Area. This site would be an ideal location for food, personal, and retail services businesses. Staff discussed this item with City Council at the August 14th, 2023 council meeting and was directed to continue discussions with the owner to provide a recommendation relating to the potential funding agreement that would allow recovery of costs associated with this project from the developer. Estimated cost to serve this site would be $500,000. Upsizing the water and sewer lines to serve properties adjacent to and at the end of the extension would add approximately $150,000 to the project cost. The use of city water and sewer funds could be used to cover any city obligations and upfront costs for this project. Our recoverable costs could be secured in part or whole through assessment and trunk charges with no use of city general funds. These would be a short-term cost to stimulate a needed type of development with no use of city general funds and with a payback of these monies over a period of time. Traffic impacts of the development on this site and surrounding properties is yet to be determined. Staff will be discussing potential grant projects with MnDOT to address part of this issue. For the Osborne commercial site, it is estimated the annual city property tax revenue would increase from approximately $100,000, and that should be $30,000 in your packet. $60,000 was the total taxes, which includes counting the school board. And up to $280,000 in SAC and WAC fees to be generated at build-out. This area is identified on the location map as future development area, which is this property here. There's about 53 acres, which is developable. There is a little bit of floodplain in the center of it, but at some point in time, it may be desirable for somebody to subdivide this. So if there's gonna be utilities run down here, it might be best to consider upsizing them to service this area in the future. And if that were the case, then this could be passed along as a trunk charge to this owner in the future. The area identified in the future development area, which is the yellow area I just outlined, could generate approximately $133,400 in property taxes and $6,772,000 in sack and whack fees at build out. The estimates for the residential development are based on densities of the R1 zoning, of which this is zoned R1, and the frontage here along Sand Hill Parkway is zoned Business B3. We had a discussion with the owner. They're interested in doing that, and they just want us to come up with some kind of formula on how their cost would be assessed. So we're gonna get together with them here and come up with at least a proposed plan that we can run by them, and then we can bring it to city council for future discussion. So I just want to present this as an update on what our discussions were with this. One other thing too is the area north here of Briarwood is Mr. Osborne's property. He has some intentions of developing the rest of it up toward the golf course at some time in the future. And I'd also like to point out too that once this property is developed, and if Capstone Viking Meadows Golf Course is developed, all the area within our current sewer service, water and sewer service area will be built out. There'll be a few sites left, like the county market site at the northwest corner of 22 and 65. Our Savior's Lutheran Church owns some property south of their church building and parking lot that they have some desires to see developed in a senior housing type campus. And then there's a few lots left in the classic commercial park that would be infilled. So once this is done, all that area down there where we do have existing utilities will be filled in and just about completed. So this is what we've had going on with Mr. Osborne. He agreed. He's perfectly comfortable with us sharing this information with the EDA and the council, but I just want to present this as an update, as something we're looking at. Also too, and part of his development, the area just north of where he is planning on doing his initial stuff is probably suitable for another 10 plus acres of commercial maybe in here. So that's where we are with that project. Discussions will be continuing ongoing with him, and we will keep everybody posted on where we are with that.
When's your next meeting with him?
Excuse me?
When's your next meeting with him?
I don't know, but if you'd like to come, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I would. Thank you.
Can I ask a
Oh, go ahead.
question? Have any business owners expressed any interest in that business property there?
No,
Like,
not here, but he's had inquiries before from retail businesses. In fact, Dollar General offered to buy a site there, but he wouldn't sell to them.
Lord, no.
It-
Let's
Yeah,
talk to Olive Garden
no,
or that
yeah,
type of
yeah.
restaurant.
No,
That's a good question, because I was going to ask, because you have an ideal location for food, personal retail. Did he have that in mind, or is it something that you saw as advantageous to the site?
No, this is what he wants, and
Okay.
this Dollar General offer was well before the other two were built.
Oh, good.
But what he said, he wanted something, he knew that the first thing that goes in there is gonna determine what the rest of it's like. So he wanted something like a restaurant or something like that that was, something that people had a demand for, maybe more than just another Dollar General, because they were starting to populate all over the place anyway. But he wanted to make sure that his first development in there was gonna be something that was real nice and something that people wanted and needed, because it would set the tone for the rest of the pattern there.
So this future development area, is that slated for business, or is that slated for home development?
No, this portion right here is zoned B3, the rest of it's zoned R1, so it'd be homes.
It would be homes.
Yeah. But-
What's on B3?
This,
Just the frontage,
just the
right?
frontage here along Sand Hill Parkway, it looks like it maybe goes back 300 feet deep. But again, you know, this is future, and, we've never had any inquiries on any of this, but, you know, just looking ahead, at some point in time, it'll probably be developed.
But at this point, they're not talking about developing it. My
No.
home is on the bottom of that.
Yeah, I think
So,
you're back here, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're right below those 3 homes there.
Yeah. Because here's the Ham Lakes East Bethel corporate limit line, and I think you're somewhere over in here.
Huh. I think we're more in between
Yeah.
where where the homes are, like right in the center kind of bit, but, because it's not, I don't know, it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
It's not parallel.
That's all in crops right
Yeah.
Right, right.
Jack, I thought you mentioned at one point that there's an area by SNAP that was potentially planned as a road. Do you think that would be further developed
An
to
area.
alleviate traffic in that area, right where SNAP Fitness
Yeah,
is?
one of the other things that we had discussion with, I don't have it up here, with Ham Lake, there's a couple of gaps in our service road that'll eventually connect Viking Boulevard up with this area.
Mhm.
There's a gap in Ham Lake Service Road that from here down to Crosstown, just north of Max Bar. We've had some discussions with Ham Lake. Ham Lake's interested in doing that segment, and we may have some interest in doing our segments too, and it might be advantageous to approach MnDOT, and I ran this by them, and they were supportive of at least exploring it to see if we can do a multi-jurisdictional cooperative agreement grant, which to my knowledge hasn't been done in the state. We've still got some good contacts with MnDOT, and another rationale for doing this would increase the functionality of that reduced conflict intersection, because now you've got a traffic relief road that would allow traffic to go from Crosstown to Viking Boulevard, 2 signalized intersections on each end to let traffic out. So we're gonna contact MnDOT just to broach the subject with them to see if there's any interest, and then we can get back to the city councils of both East Bethel and Ham Lake to see what their interest is.
Is that Baltimore Street?
This is Sand Hill, we used to be
I mean, the one
Baltimore,
that-
we were
the-
on Ham Lake side.
Yeah, the one that Sand Hill would connect to, the stub
It
that's
should,
there.
it should be Aberdeen, I believe, on the
Aberdeen,
grid,
there you
yeah.
go.
And Baltimore would be the next one over, but it's close. But, they had some interest in that, and, I talked with their city engineer and city administrator, and they ran it by their mayor, and he told me to be, and he said that sounded at least worthy of exploring. And we could hopefully leverage this not only in addition to getting the total allotment of the cooperative agreement grants for each city, which is $750,000, but maybe some additional monies to hopefully cover the cost of the whole thing. At least it's worth looking into and see what's available.
Yeah, I think that would be a good one to include that updated road,
Yeah.
really service it.
And you know, to me, that's gonna be somewhat part of the overall long-range solution to addressing the traffic problems that are gonna be generated in this development. It's not the only thing that's gonna have to be done, but it's a part of it.
Just curious, Paul, what are your thoughts about it? That's your backyard.
You're talking about this future site there?
Yeah.
Well, I was just looking at my app there, and Bradford is a secure spot right now. Yep, and I'm right here.
Yeah.
Right here, okay.
Do you have any thoughts one way or the other, or just putting you on the spot, but I just.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because where our house is today, there's all kinds of beautiful trees, and we had a birthday party for my wife a week ago Saturday. We have 16 acres, we're talking about all the trees and how it'd be a shame to cut them down. I said, well, 40 years ago, we used to farm here, there was no trees here. And it's amazing how fast time goes by. And I was speaking with one of the Williams who was I don't feel compelled to tell somebody what they should do with their land, as long as we're doing things that are for the greater good of the community. It's aesthetically appealing, it's a net gain. I know the golf course business is tough. Viking Meadows, they don't wanna be in the golf course business anymore. Seasonal business is tough, they're just trying to figure out how do they get out of it. All those beautiful trees that are there, that used to be a sod field. When I was growing up, that was a sod field. So, I like, without sounding condescending, I like to think in terms of a visionary and understanding what's it gonna look like 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now. What kind of legacy are decisions we make today going to leave? So thank you for asking my opinion, Kevin, but that's some pretty unique land there. There's lots of peat there. That was a sod farm before they started farming beans and what's that?
You're gonna need to haul some fill.
Yeah, I don't know what could be put in there,
You
but
put a house there, it's just gonna sink.
there's probably 4 to 6 feet of peat there, but north of our plant, it's like 30 feet, so.
Right.
It kind of depends on what it is. So I don't know what could reasonably be put there, but it's amazing some of the things they did along Highway 65 in South Blaine and or South Ham Lake and Northern Blaine. I can't believe what they did with some of those areas, but
It's just your house.
I'm not going anywhere, Mr. Mayor, and I just want it to be aesthetically appealing, and I want it to be a net gain.
Well, thanks. Well, thanks, you have a unique perspective, not only because you live in the area, you've lived in East Bethel so long, since you were a boy.
Yep,
And,
where our plant is, there's 40 trees, and there hasn't been trees there for 60 years.
Yeah.
Now there's
Also
trees
makes
there.
me
Yeah.
think,
They're
could
getting
we
bigger,
buy someone to sleep
and-
in?
So,
Well, I appreciate you let me put you on the spot.
it kind of goes with my territory, but,
Yeah.
so thank you for asking that.
Jack, insofar as that sewer extension, that 10-acre parcel, I think it is north of Briarwood, I gotta pull it back up on my computer. I've lost that page. Is that owned by the Osbornes, or is that owned by Dave Carlson?
Which, this shaded area,
That's Osborne's. That's
This-
10-plus acre commercial
that's-
site. Is that Dave Carlson's?
no, that's Doug Osborne.
That's Doug Osborne too.
Dave Carlson owns from the point here where the cursor is, all the way up to, he owns these 3 lots right here. This one's owned by Doug Osborne, that's where the Snap Fitness is in that suite of buildings.
Okay.
And the one north of there is Highway 65 Liquors. And this is an easement between those 2 properties. City Water and Sewer is stubbed out and crosses the ditch and ends right there. So in order to run that to him, you'd have this basic extension right here,
Mm-hmm.
which would service that site and then be able to, you could bore under the road to do something in the future. But this would be the end.
I can understand why, why the farther south piece, the piece that's
Yeah.
shaded, why that is more attractive
Well, and
for immediate development.
and this one, if you had water and sewer there, it's essentially shovel ready to go.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no wetlands on it, there's no apparent water or soils issues, and, it's got great visibility from Highway 65, and, there's a certain area here, if you cut these trees down, it'd have, great visibility back over to this other piece at some point in the future, but to me, this is a very prime commercial site, and he has been offered or been approached by other businesses, but they just didn't meet what he felt was necessary to go in there as far as the first one to being one that sets the tone for what happens with the rest of the development.
Do you know what's suggested there? Is anything suggested there?
No, he's just gonna start, once he gets water and sewer there, or whenever it comes, then that's when he'd start marketing it.
The sketch you have on the board are the dots of those proposed structures?
The manholes, they would be the manholes that would be
Yeah.
needed, yes. For a gravity sewer. The other option would be doing it with a lift station, but that's almost as expensive as the gravity, and then you don't have to maintain it. You don't lose a half acre or
If I own that piece that we're talking about, not the initial shaded piece, I'm talking about the other piece. As someone who spent his entire life in construction, I wouldn't want to have a force main running through there. I'd
No.
much prefer a gravity main.
well,
Makes it
yeah.
so much more developable.
A force main would not benefit this property right here unless you ran all the sewer back down to this lift station, then to pump it back up the force main to get to the gravity line that the city owns,
Yeah.
so.
So it's almost to a certain degree, it's a self-financing proposal.
It would be, yes, and it's one that we couldn't afford to do it ourselves because it really just benefits Mr. Osborne currently, and he recognizes that, but we just need to see if there's a way that we can come up with something that's gonna be attractive both to him and us as far as financing goes. Then there's a multitude of ways to do it. You can assess over a number of years, or you can break it up maybe into a trunk charge at the start of the project and then a trunk charge when the first CO is issued. So it's just a matter of what's palatable to both the owner and the city.
What the piece that I was talking about, that has the structures on it right in there.
Mm-hmm.
What's that zoned?
This is zoned, I believe this is mixed use. Everything north of Briarwood here, up to this line here is zoned mixed use. This is zoned B3 where the shaded area is, B3 here, and then this is R1 over here. So as far as zoning goes, there's no issues with this for business development. But this is something we'll be discussing with Mr. Osborne. And again, Mr. Osborne is in no great hurry to do anything. I think he'd like to start something soon, but he's not in a real rush to do it. So the schedule on this could be a year, it could be 5 years. So we'll just have to see what happens here.
Very good, thank you, Jack. Other questions or discussions? All right, we'll move on to item 7, business activity report.
Thank you, Tom. Holiday Station project at the intersection of 187th Lane and Highway 65 is back on schedule, and they have told us they anticipate there's an opening date in mid-September. They had a few little issues on getting some stuff in. I think now they're starting to finish the inside, maybe start bringing some shelving in. They'll have to have maybe a week or 10 days of training, but they're going to open pretty soon. We told them they better hurry up or Quick Trip is going to catch
That's
them.
what I'm thinking.
Elvidge project is on schedule. As you've noticed, they've done all the clearing and grubbing, so they still hope to have the first phase of the housing components scheduled to start later this fall. However, I don't think they're going to be able to achieve that. So the important thing to that was if they applied for 50 building permits by the end of the year, it would push that reserve capacity loan payment we have off another year. To me, it probably doesn't make any difference, because once we start paying on that, we're gonna start paying on it next year or within the next 2 years regardless, because we can't keep up with that pace, because those requirements for that keep increasing exponentially. But then we go back to, and then we start paying the same SAC charge to Met Council that 105 of the rest of the 107 cities in the metro area pay. We pay $700 more a month now because we have a standalone plant. So that will reduce our SAC cost by $700 per unit. Quick Trip, as you know, began construction in June, and they're making great progress on their building, and their opening date is scheduled for November the 9th. The City Council approved the conduit bond financing for Nexus at their July 10th, 2023 meeting, and a payment in lieu of taxes agreement and an amended CUP at the August 7th, 2023 work meeting. The closing for the purchase of the Canby Hills by Nexus was completed on August 16th, 2023, and the city has received all the fees due from them, which include a bond participation fee of $100,000, payment of the current water bill of $527.28, the special assessment fee for the 189th Avenue project for their share of it of $180,042.02 has been paid and received, and the legal fees incurred by East Bethel over and above those paid to the bond council have been paid in the amount of $30,165. The pilot agreement fees of $24,000 are not due until and will be paid in 2024 in 2 equal payments to the city at the time tax settlement payments are issued. Bond council legal fees of $80,000 were paid directly to Dorsey Whitney for their services, and payment for the second half special assessment was made to Anoka County in the amount of $17,854.03 and will be received from the county at the time of the second half property tax settlement in December. That was the other balance that was owed on that special assessment. So all those, any obligations from Canby Hills have now been satisfied, and Nexus is free and clear of those. Staff attended the East Bethel Chamber of Commerce meeting as we previously discussed and listed their services in moving forward with the BR&E plan. Again, we'd like to thank Mr. Johnson for appearing here tonight, and we'll be working with the Chamber to further continue this so we can get started on it. Also, the next one is just a review of the update that we did with Capstone. Some other items on here. There's an open application for a mining permit and site preparation for a proposed greenhouse and garden center project just north of 209th Avenue on Highway 65, and it's awaiting submission for approval pending direction from the property owner. Issues still remain with the excavation of the berm within the MnDOT right-of-way. The owner wants to do that so we'll have site distance and site vision from Highway 65. Designing Earth Contract has applied for and received their building permit, and they will start that project any day now. And the previous location of Designing Earth at 185651 Buchanan Street is on the market, and staff has been receiving inquiries and zoning questions about that property. City staff has also received inquiries regarding the 8-acre city-owned property south of and adjacent to Cedar Creek Living on Taylor Street. We haven't had anything concrete. We've just had a few people that are interested in purchasing that, said they wanted to use it to consider to do townhouses. But we told them before we could present anything to City Council, we'd have to have some type of a concept plan and more concrete information before we could even make a decision or bring that to the council for their consideration. The Strandland Farm Rural Residential Subdivision at 2836 221st Avenue Northeast concept plan was presented and approved at the July 25th, 2023 Planning Commission and the August 14th, 2023 City Council meeting. A preliminary plat application is expected to be filed in September. The Hidden Prairie subdivision on East Bethel Boulevard concept plan was presented and approved at the July 25th, 2023 Planning Commission and the August 14th City Council meeting. A preliminary plat application is also expected to be filed in September for that property. And as we just discussed, Osborne Development is interested in marketing their side at 181st and Highway 65. So we've still got quite a few things going on the economic development front, and things are still looking pretty good for us economically. And again, I think the key to all this is comments we've had from City Council. Mr. Johnston reiterated a lot of those, is to take advantage of these, but to make sure they're done in the proper manner. So that's our goal, and that's where we are right now. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. No shortage of business. City Council report.
Obviously, I was counting on Brian being here. Did such a good job last time. Well, everything that Jack said, plus the primary thing we're working on right now is the budget for 2024. So we're in the thick of that right now, and the big shocker was the unexpected increase, 10% higher than expected by the Anoka County Sheriff's Office. And so we're working our way through that. There's some state monies that'll be available, but they're a one-time deal for this year only. So we're having to find other places in the budget we can save. So anyway, stay tuned. We'll be working on it on Monday night. And by the way, I talked to Mike at the fire department meeting I just came from. And I'm planning on seeing him on Wednesday or Thursdays just to work through some iterations of areas we can, sit down together and have his model right on the computer, and we can work on it together.
All right.
Very good, thank you, Mayor. All right, no further discussion. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.